Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of What Your Money Can Buy in Toronto Real Estate. In this edition, I'm going to show you what we sold for $1,050,000 right at North York, right at Yonge St in terms of this detached linked property, 5 bedrooms, 2 washrooms. As always, I'm going to go through the property, give you the property tour, give you the property facts, and tell you what it says about the Toronto and GTA real estate market. Every single sale, every single transaction is indicative of and gives you some insight to the Toronto and GTA real estate market. In this case, we're going to see how exactly the timing of the sale impacted the sale, how it says something about who was and who is going on market as the Toronto GTA real estate market continues to decline towards the end of 2023. Okay guys, so here we are at the main entrance. Usually in these videos we just go in immediately, but it's important for this property for us to see what's actually in front of the entrance, behind the cameraman. So cameraman, if you can pan around for a second and show the people what's behind you and what the property is facing. Now, as you guys can see, this property is facing a primary street. It's not a main street in the sense that it's like Yonge Street or, Wilson, but it is a street that is trafficked quite frequently, and it acts as a thoroughfare, kind of a vein throughout this whole entire community, which spans around 6 to 8 blocks. So off the bat, when you're purchasing a property like this, and as you'll see from the inside, the primary value proposition of this property is the centrality and where it's located. And centrality comes with good and bad. Now, a lot of people might not mind the fact that it's facing onto a main street. I mean, it's not an issue in terms of noise or anything, but backing out your car can be a bit of a headache during rush hour. However, that is simply the price that comes with centrality. Whether you're looking at North York, Midtown, west side of the city, east side of the city, you're going to be in a highly dense area. And density also includes vehicular traffic as well. So when this property was on market and we were attempting to sell it, some of the negative feedback we got had to do with this very fact. Of course, once again, you cannot have centrality without, kind of sometimes bordering on main streets or being in very dense areas. So it just comes with the territory. So that's just to provide some further context. Enough of that. Let's go take a look at the inside. Cameraman, if you will. I'm currently standing in the living/dining area of the property. Let's go through some of the property facts quickly. Off the bat, as I said, this property is a detached linked property that we sold for $1,050,000. All in all, you're looking at 5 bedrooms, 4 to 5 bedrooms. I'll explain a bit more and you'll see what I'm talking about when I say 4 to 5. But we listed it as 5 bedrooms and 2 washrooms. It's a 2-story detached linked. In terms of lot size, you're looking at 35 by 105. So 35 width, 105 feet depth. And in terms of community, it is pretty much the same community that you've heard me talk about on this channel before if you've watched the other episodes of this series, namely the property we sold for $1.8 million in North York, that bungalow that I talked about previously. They are in the same community, which is Newtonbrook West, but of course the lot of that one was substantially larger. And as you can see from this property, right, of course it's an older property. It was built in the late 60s, early 70s, so it's kind of around 50 to 60 years old. The layout is old. They don't build properties like this anymore. One fact I could point towards is the kitchen. The kitchen is towards the entrance, right? This was the old style of building properties. These layouts where the kitchen is right next to the entrance. Builders don't build that anymore, right? This was common, once again, for properties built in the 60s, 50s, and 70s. And as you can see from the hardwood on the ground, the wallpaper, right? Everything is in normal working order. Nothing is broken. Some, wear and tear here and there, but it's just outdated. And the sellers of this property were the original owners of the property. So this property up to this sale has never really changed hands all that much. And as always, I prioritize my clients, right, over, no offense, you guys. So we didn't get an opportunity to, film this property when it was staged, unfortunately, because it looked much better staged. But for a property of this age, for a property of this location and this lot size, The living area has, I would say, an average amount of space, but in terms of bedrooms, see on the higher end. Not a lot of, properties built in the late 60s, early 70s, even obviously in the 50s more so, have 5 bedrooms to speak of. Now where those chandeliers are, obviously, when it was staged, that's where the dining area is. And where I'm currently standing and limping kind of, because I did mess up my ankle as I record this, playing basketball, but nonetheless, where I am limping is the living, right? So you do have a combo dining, living, the TV would go here, couches were there, the dining set was there, coffee table where I'm once again barely standing. And then everything just bleeds into the backyard. And the backyard is one of the strongest points of the property, as we will get to see now, because it's quite small, but it's very, very secluded, and there's actually immense quality of solitude. In fact, the buyer who ended up purchasing this, when I showed them the property, they fell in love with the backyard. Their most demonstrative reaction was to the backyard, actually. So, let's go to the backyard. I am injured, so come on. And as you can see, the backyard, once again, it's not that big, but it's very green. And this property, as I said, is right on, within like a minute to 2 minute walk to Yonge St. Highly trafficked area, a lot of buses, a lot of construction, a subway line coming, condos going up. In terms of the residential properties, major housing construction happening there as well, foot traffic, bicycle traffic. And if we just take a second to shut up, we will hear nothing but wind and birds. That's it. So I find it very actually impressive how secluded this backyard feels, even though it's very close, once again, to the major metropolis that is the city of Toronto. Nonetheless though, as always on this channel, I keep it 100 with you guys, right? As you saw from the interior condition, and as I've said, the value proposition of this property is the location, not how it looks on the inside. And the reason we sold it for $1,050,000 was because my sellers were really reasonable. When I sat down with them and talked to them about the property, the value propositions, the pros and the cons, we knew whoever was going to buy this would need to do anywhere from, on the low side, $50,000 worth of work to the high end, $100,000 worth of work. Once again, nothing is broken. However, it's just old and it's not up to the tastes of a lot of modern buyers who will be particularly looking at central regions of the city of Toronto. Let's limp back inside. Now we'll see a different perspective of the living, dining, kitchen, and entrance, right? Cameraman, just show the entrance right there so people have a better idea of the floor plan. And obviously you see the kitchen right there as well. Now the kitchen, as I said, older layout purely by the fact of where it's located, right? But even in terms of how it's laid out, you can tell it's an older property. It has the side door. The side door goes to the kitchen. This wouldn't be the case right now. Nowadays, if there's any door, it's the door that's leading to the backyard, because once again, the kitchen is on the back end of the property. Older appliances, and this whole entire thing needs to be remodeled, and that's what the buyer is intending on doing. Okay, now to the left of the kitchen, if you can envision that, you see this door, there's a corridor. We go through the corridor, we have the first washroom, right? The powder room on the main floor, right? And then we have this room. Cameraman, if you will, come inside with me. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned that we listed it as a 5-bedroom, but it could have been listed as a 4-bedroom. The main reason being is that this room is technically an office. So when it was staged, my stager had some office desks and chairs. There was a beautiful piano here, an antique piano. And this could be used as a bedroom because it has a window. It doesn't have any closet space, but it does have a window, so it could be used as a bedroom, or it could be used as its natural function, which is an office or a study room of a kind. So we decided to go with the listing of 5 bedrooms. It's not as if it's misrepresenting anything, because we thought that naturally, once again, when you're buying a central location, such as right at Yonge St, right close to Bathurst and Steeles as well, the more bedrooms, the better, and it's gonna catch more attention of a prospective buyer. And it worked out. That's exactly what happened. The 5-bedroom fact of this property was one of the main attraction points.
All right, now we've seen most of the downstairs. Let's go take a look at the upstairs. And as I take you through the upstairs, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what it says about the Toronto and GTA real estate market. As always on this channel and this series, I try to keep it as informative as possible. And as you know, I think every single transaction, every single sale, purchase is indicative in some way or fashion of the state of the Toronto and GTA real estate market, and we can learn a lot from the sales. And I'll tell you exactly the context for this sale. Come. All right, here we are. We're upstairs, a total of 4 bedrooms and 1 washroom. We're gonna go through all of them, starting with the primary bedroom. Let's take a look at the primary bedroom, which is down this corridor right here. So the primary bedroom here is the largest bedroom we're gonna see today, and it's quite spacious for the age. Once again, I'll have to keep mentioning that. Now, when we sold this, it was in September. At the time of recording of this video, it's I think November 6th. You might be watching this sometime in November, December, or even 2024 for all I know. When we sold this in September and when we listed it in early August, the market was on its way down, particularly within this region, within this community. Now, this community is still on the more expensive side, but at $1,050,000, this was a very, very good purchase. Why is that important? Well, putting aside all the work this property needs, right? Because this property would have needed the work, once again, estimating a wide gap of 50 to 100K. That would have been the case in a hot market, in a cool market, in a modern market, in any market. So putting that aside, this same exact property would have probably, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, as a guy who works here often in this particular community and knows the market, from the channel, you know, I always have my eyes on the number. This property would have probably sold for upwards of 1.35 to 1.4 in the peak of market in 2022, so February and March. And in early 2023, probably would have sold for 1.15 to 1.25 in April, May of 2023. This is just to establish how key timing is, right? Timing is very key for sellers, especially sellers who go on market in a down market. However, of course, in this case, the seller portfolio, without giving too much away, is completely different. These are not people who bought, you know, in 2019, 2010, 2009. They were the original owners for many, many decades. So timing the market here and there for these particular sellers didn't make much of a difference. I'm just giving you the context from a market perspective of how much things shift. And as we go into the second bedroom, right, the way this was further indicative of the market at large is at the time of selling this property, the only people I was speaking to where I was recommending, hey, you should go on market, where I was giving them estimates around or below what they actually bought, were people who bought many decades ago, right? You have to understand that right now we're dealing with a surplus of inventory. Inventory far exceeds demand. That is one of the reasons why prices keep coming down. And for most sellers, it just simply does not make sense to go on market when that is the case. And one of the only seller portfolio that is immune from that are the sellers who have owned for minimum 5+ years, but ideally 10 to 20 plus years, because it's all equity and the gains are immense. Now, once again, I want to be very clear. This doesn't mean that people should go on market even if you own property for 20 plus years. It's just to say that if you have any motivations to sell, you're less impacted, because yes, you could have otherwise sold this property, as I said earlier, for upwards of $300,000 to $400,000 more, but at that point in time, you didn't need to sell it for whatever the reason was, and now you do. And it's not as if you're losing money, once again, because you've owned it for 20, 30 plus years. In an ideal world, as I told my clients, they would have gone on market peak 2022, even early 2023, when the market was on a resurgence. But hey, life is not that simple. You can't time things. Hindsight is always 20/20. Now, another attribute of this property that is indicative of its age is the fact that it's only 2 washrooms, right? It's 5 bedrooms, 2 washrooms. That was one of the other downsides of this property that we got in terms of feedback, because the washroom upstairs has to be shared amongst all 4 bedrooms. Once again, this was not abnormal for a property this age. Here we are finally in the 4th and final bedroom upstairs. In total, 5 bedrooms in the entire property.
And yeah, like it needs work. There's no doubt about that. But the value proposition of this property, once again, was the location. Now, speaking of location, let's get a little bit more in depth on location. But before we do that, let me make a distinction between semi-detached and detached linked in this case. Normally, detached linked properties are linked at the foundation. As you can see here, this detached linked property, as you can see here, this is linked at the garage. Now you might wonder, why is it a detached link if it's linked at the garage? Why is it not listed as a semi-detached? We could have listed it as a semi-detached, but we went on precedent, and this type of property is very common on this street, where it's two properties that are linked and attached at the garage, and previously all of them have been listed as detached linked. The reason it's not quite fair to list them as semi-detached, because a semi-detached property is one which has a attached wall, essentially meaning you're sharing a wall, for lack of a better word, with your neighbors. Here, there is no shared wall whatsoever. The properties themselves are completely detached. It's just merely the garages that are attached together. So determining the exact nature of the property was one of the complications, and ultimately did not have that much of an impact in terms of getting people in through the door. It's not as if we decided to list it as a detached link to get more people to see it. This property type, once again, is very common in this community, and an educated buyer would be informed of that and would be informed of that. And of course, I did my best to educate every buyer who saw this property through open houses or my own showings. So that over there is Steeles, right? If you're familiar with the state of Toronto, Steeles is one of the main east-west thoroughfares within the city. And as I said, this property is honestly like 15 to 20-second drive away from Yonge and Steeles. And in terms of walk, depending on your pace, it's 3 to 5 minute walk from Yonge and Steeles. I've spoken a lot about centrality in terms of location, but if you've seen my other videos on Yonge and Steeles, for instance, condos that I've sold, for instance, like in One Grandview, check that video out. You've heard me talk about the future of Yonge and Steeles. Amongst other videos I've talked about the future of Yonge and Steeles, for instance, are my short form content in terms of TikToks and Reels, where you can see this. This is what Yonge and Steeles looks like right now, and I cannot stress enough how differently it's going to look in the next 10 years. There is a lot of development that's going to come to this intersection. As of right now, it's one of the least dense intersections within the city of Toronto. You only have two major buildings, which is one Grandview and the other one is World on Yonge condos. Other than that, it is mostly rental apartments and really nothing else. And all these car dealerships and Center Point Mall will be grounds for a lot of upcoming towers. I mean, some proposals have it upwards of 8 to 15 towers coming to this intersection. It is the boundary of Toronto and York region, so will be very interesting in the coming years. As always, for more on, you know that there is a subway extension eventually coming to Finch and Steeles with 15 to 20 mega towers going up at this intersection. Right now, as is currently the case, Yonge and Steeles is probably the most barren intersection of North York. Obviously, Yonge and Shepherd, immensely developed. Yonge and Finch, on its way there. All the major intersections east to west of that, in terms of Bayview, Bathurst, the ones in between, in terms of Willowdale, all that on its way to development. So Yonge and Steeles is going to head there, whether the subway is coming in 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, whether the towers are coming in 5 to 10 years. There's no question that development is coming. Anyways, that is it for this edition of What Your Money Can Buy within the city of Toronto. As always, check out the other episodes of this series. As I work on healing my ankle, expect more content to come out in terms of market stats, market trends, condo reviews, area analysis, and so much more. Feel free to get in touch with me. My contact information in the description box. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.